Hi, let's talk international security. Now, on Friday, 7th August, leaders of Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Turkey signed what is called the Mecca Joint Defense Agreement. I come from the realist school of international relations, so you understand that I believe in military alliances. I believe in sovereignty, including the pooling of sovereignty within regions, and so on and so forth. So this is one of the biggest shocks now to the American imperialist-based Middle East security architecture. Now, what is the purpose of the Mecca Joint Defense Agreement? They put emphasis on strengthening collective deterrence against aggression. Of course, it's very clear that the war of aggression on Iran is partly responsible for this move among these three countries. So the agreement states clearly that an attack on Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, or Turkey is an attack on all of them. That is the key principle of collective security as we define it in international relations. All right. So the only, ingredient or the only country of consequence that is missing in this agreement is actually Iran. Because Iran, whether you like it or not, has emerged as a major power in the Middle East. And if Iran was to be part of this Mecca Security Pact, I can assure you that this pact will not be challenged by any of the powers that are masquerading as the dominant powers in that region. All right, so let's move on then. We see what this means. Now, Pakistan has nuclear weapons, so that is one of the strengths now of this current arrangement. And I will be able to say more about the capacities and what these different countries are bringing to this security pact. Okay, so this is what Al Jazeera says. I've just borrowed a little bit from the analysis done by Al Jazeera, and Al Jazeera has mapped out what each country brings to this security pact. Al Jazeera says that Saudi Arabia contributes capital, geography, infrastructure, and political convening power. Turkey contributes an increasingly sophisticated defense industrial base, drones, missiles, scanners, and so on and so forth. So we look at Pakistan again. We have already said that Pakistan is a nuclear armed state. So Pakistan contributes manpower, that's according to Al Jazeera, a large professional military establishment, operational experience, defense production, and of course, nuclear capability. Now, it's not too late for Africans, the African masses, the African professionals, African workers, leaders across the continent, political parties, institutions. It is not too late for us to learn from this new political pact. Really, the time for foreign military bases in Africa is now gone. We as Africans must now borrow critical lessons from what Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey have done. Let's not forget that before the war of aggression in Iran, which is against international law, a country like Saudi Arabia which has been a puppet of America for years, almost a century, would never have had the guts or the motivation to be part of a security architecture other than the imperialist-based American security architecture in the Middle East. So as I've said, this is about unintended consequences. It is the war of aggression that has actually brought these countries together. Again, let me point out that forming this security architecture also means a pivot away from the so-called Abraham Accords. Now, these were pushed down the throats of the Arabs by the imperialist world led by America. Remember again, the final point, I think, on Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's moving away from the US security umbrella basically is a mortal threat to the petrodollar system. In fact, one could say that this security pact between Pakistan, a nuclear-armed state, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey could as well be one of the last nails on the coffin of the system of imperialism as exercised in the Middle East, where the most of the countries, the Arab countries particularly, were assigned only the duty of providing oil and other raw materials to fuel the engine of capitalist accumulation in Western nations. So this is extremely important. Again, the Muslim world. The Muslim world has been caricatured as terrorists. And at the same time, they're the ones who have been attacked over and over and over and over again. You know what happened to Iraqi. You know what happened to Libya, which is still down on its knees when the revolutionary leader Muammar Gaddafi was assassinated by NATO in the year 2011. Now, Africans, I've already said that the era of having military bases on the continent in countries in Africa, particularly Djibouti, is now gone. That is one of the most important lessons that we must learn from the formation of this security pact. It is not late, too late rather, for us to realize how military power has been used to keep the imperialist system going so that African countries could be consigned to the periphery of the capitalist system. Because the capitalist system uses military. This is why the US has almost 800 military bases across the world. And almost all the big powers have military bases in Djibouti. Our security architecture is weak and is dependent on our relationships with the big powers. It doesn't have to be like that at all. And what will make a big difference is three things: the element of integration, the element of security, and the element of Pan-Africanism. I have been talking about these three elements forever. These are the three pillars of Africa's greatness. If you add to that the resources, if you add to that the youngest population anywhere, the youngest population, the most innovative population, everybody wants to have our labor since the days of slavery. It is time for us in Africa to now use our own labor to develop ourselves. If we miss this window, then we are looking at another 2,000 years of imperialism in Africa.